let's get going. In next 1 minute, I start. Varsha, you switch off your microphone. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Your Excellency, are you ready? Okay. Yeah. Great good morning in US, Canada. Good afternoon in England, Africa, and Europe. Good evening, Asia Pacific, Thailand, India, Malaysia, Singapore, Afghanistan. Late good evening in Australia. There are people joining on Australia. Namaste and Sawadikap. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, and we are live on Global Talent Company TV channel. First of all, I am really pleased to present to you our great honorable, Her Excellency Indian Ambassador in Thailand, Madam Suchitra Durai. My folded pranams to her, a very passionate, energetic, active personality who is demonstratively connected to the large Indian community as well as Thai community in Thailand, as well as to the women power. In fact, her simplicity and aura has really made a tremendous impact in Thailand. And as Madam, your surname, your name as Madam Suchitra, I can simply say it as simply unique, compassionate, helpful, intelligent, talented, richness, aura. I repeat, simply unique, compassionate, helpful, intelligent, talented, richness, aura. That is what Madam Suchitra ji is. I am so grateful to Excellency Madam Suchitra Durai for accepting to be here to share thoughts on hashtag Women Power. Let me first introduce Excellency. Since her joining at Indian Foreign Services in 1988, Excellency has served in various capacities, both at headquarters in Government of India, as well as key important assignments in various countries. She has served as a High Commissioner of India to Kenya, as Indian Ambassador to Somalia, as well as Permanent Representative of India to United Office in Nairobi, as well as Indian Ambassador to Eritrea. In her home country, India, Excellency served as Director General dealing with Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Indian Ocean region in the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi, and Director General for Council Affairs. Her earlier tenure at the Government of India included Director and Acting Head of Division of MEA, dealing with Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Maldives in 2007. Deputy Secretary and the Head of External Relations Division of the Department of Atomic Energy in Mumbai, Desk Officer for Disarmament and International Security Affairs in MEA, and Desk Officer for Western Europe. She has served abroad, Counselor at Embassy of India in Vienna, alternate to Governor of India and Board of Governors for International Atomic Energy, and First Secretary in Embassy of India in Buenos Aires from 96 to 98, and Third Secretary Language Training, Second Secretary at Embassy of India in Madrid. She is from MA in English background with MPhil in Defense Studies from the University of Madras. She is an alumni of 48th course 2008 of the National Defense College at New Delhi. And but yesterday when I was speaking to someone in ISB Hyderabad, when they received the flyer and some of people are joining, they informed that she did even attend one of the courses in ISB as well. They were remembering Madam Her Excellency. We all know that Excellency is married to Ambassador retired Mr. Swaminathan, and who retired in 2015 as Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs. I can go on and on. As such is the background of our guest of honor this evening, Excellency Ambassador. But due to shortage of time, I will stop here, and Excellency has given us only 45 minutes. We have to move ahead with the program. In fact, because of that, I would not be able to present a PowerPoint presentation where we share the intervention of hashtag Women Power, a global movement. But I would quickly take Excellency through. I would like to inform Excellency that the movement is already in 20 countries, and we mission to have by 2021, 100,000 women to be part of this platform, and 1 million women by 2024. This women power concept was started by me before COVID BC with UN Women, as we regularly work with United Nations organizations, UN Women, USAID, UNICEF, UNDP, DAI, UNECA, even in Africa. We have had opportunity of training top women leaders of various countries, including Nigeria, including Ethiopia, including Afghanistan, where we train ministers, senators, leaders, directors, as well as parliamentarians on the request of First Lady of Afghanistan. And she has been one of a great women power builder in that country, irrespective of all odds. So this women power is really a dream. And I was just interviewed a couple of days back, wherein I was talking, am I crazy about this, what I am doing? But I think I am crazy. And there are a lot of people who are involved with me who are crazy about this. And we have storytellings till December 21 across the world in 20 chapters, including Thailand, where NG is our chapter in charge. Your Excellency, the format is I will have some questions for you, Your Excellency, and then I will quickly try to wrap up and give it to my people who had some questions, the attendees who will have questions for you. So can I start, ma'am, with your permission? And I remember I got the gold medal at India Thai, Sports Day, and that's where you have another route, which is you are an athlete, you are running into the stadium, Jalala Khan Stadium. Twice we did already, 2 terms you were already there, and you ran into the stadium. So that is the beauty of you, ma'am, and I am really honored to have you here this evening. So this women power, and women are quality of life. And women, without women, I mean, I am born because my mom, who is the quality of women, we lost her last year, and she has done so much for us as children who are in different parts of the world today. So women is somebody as a mother, as a sister, as a partner, as colleagues. I have had great colleagues. I've learned from a lot of women. And this women power is something where we will every day salute. And world needs people like you who have excelled as a woman and attained your journey of excellence. Ma'am, how was your childhood? Were there any issues in your childhood which you conquered because you were a woman? I am keen to know your little story about in case there were certain issues, challenges, but you broke them and you moved forward as a woman of excellence. Yes, ma'am.
Firstly, namaskar, sawadee-ka, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody across the globe. Thank you so much, Mr. Bakshi, for your very kind words. I feel really very humbled, and I don't know whether I deserve all that you have mentioned. Yes, of course, I've had a long trajectory in the Indian Foreign Service. which has given me a huge opportunity to be able to meet people from different parts of the world, and I have been enriched by that experience. And I'm truly grateful for this opportunity to represent my country abroad. It's a singular honor, and I'm very conscious of it every moment of my life. So coming to my childhood, as you rightly mentioned, of course, we all have, our challenges. But I think I was extremely fortunate in the sense that, I am a late child. Uh, so was my elder sister, who's elder to me by 2 years. So she was born to my parents 13 years after they got married. So she was like God's gift to my parents. And I came along 2 years later. So I was, I think, an accident. But to their credit, I must say that my parents brought both my sister and me up and treated us, no differently from any boy. So in that sense, we are a middle class family. I would say a family of very modest means because, while we had, nothing lacking in terms of our basic comforts, it was not a life of luxury. My first 8 years was spent in Delhi, and I would say it was a beautiful Delhi at that time. It was really like heaven on earth for me, that childhood, a very simple life, nothing was lacking. When I was 8, I came back to Chennai, and my formative years in terms of education, in terms of whatever I became, I would attribute it actually to the school that I went to in Chennai, which is absolutely remarkable school. My father, in fact, he retired when I was quite young, but then he got re-employed, and it was, of course, there were the usual things, some bereavements, the family, some other issues, but I must once again emphasize that really it was a very happy and uncomplicated childhood, because my parents ensured that we were not lacking in anything basic, and the whole world was really our oyster, and we could choose and go ahead and be whatever we wanted to be. So from that point of view, I would say it was indeed a very happy childhood for me.
Very inspiring, ma'am, because we all, our sisters, our mothers, they have gone through different issues, challenges, but I think you had a, who was the most important impactor on you? Your mom, your dad? What did they do different in terms of making you to go, grow, and glow?
I think both. I would, I really cannot choose because I think definitely my father, because, he was really ahead of his time. Had he lived, he would be 104, which is not possible. So he died 10 years ago and lived a full life. And like I mentioned to you, he, never discriminated. He never thought that just because you're a girl, you can't do certain things. So for us, one thing that he taught both my sister and me was that economic independence was extremely important. So and also the emphasis on education. But education was not just to acquire degrees. It was actually uh, a channel for doing other things. And all the values that I have, a strong sense of duty, honesty, and, simple living. He'd always say, cut the coat according to the cloth. Never live beyond your means. So for me, those words have stayed with me throughout. And I've always, felt that, God has been very kind. But, you know, we see the kind of, disparity among the people. So whatever you can share with other people, you should do so. I learned from him not being flamboyant, always tell the truth. And, marriage was, of course, everybody, if they have the opportunity, should get married and have a good family life. But marriage, was not the be all and end all of life, which was quite unique for parents of that era. My mother, on the other hand, was more conservative, of course, but she never imposed her wishes on either my sister and me. We could do precisely what we wanted. We could speak in any which way we wanted. Our dinner table conversations were on any topic under the sun. We could discuss religion, we could discuss politics. We had completely diametrically opposite views, and we would discuss everything. And that's how I was brought up, to speak my mind. And there was no rancor at the end of it.
Beautiful.
And, discussions about our, culture, our heritage, the independence movement, what you can do with your career, how should you go, ahead with life. All these things were very normal conversations for us. So my parents were not, imposing distant figures. They were more like friends despite our age difference. And, I had the most affectionate relationship. My mother, who's 94, continues to be with me. And I've ensured that in every foreign posting that I went, they would always visit me. It was not very easy because visas and, the cost of traveling abroad can be intimidating, but I always ensured that they would come and see what I was doing, because that was something which gave me a lot of joy. So I would say both my parents are equally responsible. My mother, through her love of literature, her sensibility, her ability, because although we are all Tamils, she was brought up in the north, a very strong sense of national integration, love of poetry, love of literature, all this, and ability to respect all religions. I would say I got that from her, because in our shrine, in our little mandir, we had, all our Hindu gods. We also had a picture of the Christ.
Wow.
We would, have, a break, share all our feasts together with people of all religions who were our neighbors. So all these things I learned from her. So I think both my parents were very equally responsible.
Fascinating. First of all, my pranams to your mom, and she is the quality of life, and such powerful, super duper women power are, that is where they have brought us such type of women of excellence, women of substance to this world. So my salute to her. And I always, Dr. Kiran Bedi always talks to me that you are crazy about moms and moms. They are the quality. She's number one women power with us on this intervention. She's the first one. When we talked in 2018, she said, no, you need to do something on women power. And she put me on this. She checks my videos, whatever I am talking about her. And every day morning, she says, hey, you talk this. And she is another great woman who has actually impacted my life. And here we are talking about similar kind of inspiration coming from you. The objective of this evening series Saturday is to inspire women around the world that when you could do it, why can't they do it? And that is the purpose. Ma'am, looking at your dad who has really inspired, and mom is super mom, was there any roadmap or a plan you had? Because when you studied MA in English, then you went to MPhil in defense, and finally IFS. How was your journey as a woman where men dominated the entire world in the situation where you were? Did you ever have any, I will give up because men are dominated? How did this happen? So did you face issues, challenges? And you said, no, whatever I am, I need to move forward. How did you reach to this next level of excellence? That's very keen. Women would certainly like to know your journey. Irrespective of the fact you're well qualified, but you are a woman because men are dominating. Yes, Your Excellency.
That's very true. But like I mentioned to you, because of this, very, remarkable father that I had, I never, really looked at men in a very antagonistic light, to be very honest. Because in front of me, I didn't have brothers. I did have some cousins with whom I had a very good relationship. But my father for me was such a nice figure, such a pleasant and wonderful person that I never really thought of men as being, some, kind of a figure of domination. Of course, the real world is different. At home, it's a different world completely. I agree with you. So when you talk about my career, whether it was planned, I would say it was a mix. I'm a fifth generation civil servant. So my father's maternal great-grandfather was a courtier in the Raja of Pudukkotai's court. My father's grandfather, which is my great-grandfather, was one of the earliest officials in the South Indian Railway at Trichy. Both my paternal and maternal grandfathers were civil servants. My father was again a government servant, a middle-level government servant. But my paternal grandfather was a very senior government servant, and he was really slated for very senior positions when he passed away in 1929. So he was some kind of a role model. So my father, while we were young children, would always tell these wonderful stories of my grandfather having, participated in the Delhi Darbar of 1911, of having been posted in Calcutta during the British colonial period, of having served in this district, doing this and that sort of thing. So civil service was certainly one of the options, which was very much, forward. But while you're growing up, you also realize that it is not an easy thing. There is no guarantee. The luck also plays a lot. You have to study very hard. But I think also got lucky. So I should say that. When I was 12, I had a friend whose brother was actually in the Indian Foreign Service. She used to tell me tales about her brother who was a diplomat, who was in Mussoorie training, or he was posted in this country, etc., etc. And to me, that was very fascinating. And I had these books at home where, there would be lots of things about, Paris of the 19th century, Vienna of the 19th century, the Vienna Convention, the various treaties. So these were there, and for me, I thought my temperament suited a career in the Foreign Service because I was more intellectually oriented and drafting treaties, speaking at these fora. For me, that I thought was more. And like I mentioned to you, I think I got really lucky because I passed the civil services exam and actually got my first choice, which was the Foreign Service. Although I could have joined the Indian Administrative Service, this was my preference, and I was lucky enough to be able to have got into the Foreign Service. But of course, I had a fallback plan. Because I think in life you should always have a fallback plan because there's no guarantee about these things, and you shouldn't become disheartened because a failure in an exam doesn't mean that you're bad. It's because these are all very relative merits. It's not an absolute kind of thing. So I was planning to be something else, and I had prepared for that. In fact, I was also a journalist for a few years before I got into the Foreign Service. So I can say that it was a mix of planning And also a little bit of luck also played a part in this journey.
Beautiful, inspiring. Excellency, I always see diplomats having, quick connect after moving from one culture to other culture, from Vienna. When I look at Excellency, your profile, Cairo, Vienna, Kenya, Madrid, in India, so many positions, and then moving to Thailand. And when I was talking to Ambassador Vadava a few days back, she's also going to be here, who is to be ambassador for Japan. And immediate quick connect, because when I see during this COVID-19, I can say BC fine, but DC, I don't know when AC will come, after COVID will come. BC, you were already active, and Visa, even at Swati Modi, even whatever events. And during COVID, DC, the amount of work, amount of morning, evening, day, night, helping the community. How do you, as diplomats, and especially Your Excellency yourself, immediately connect from one culture to other culture to other culture to other culture, and connect into Thai culture, and making it possible that even if there are issues, sorting them, solving them. And especially in COVID days, immediate and instant actions by you. You were active from morning to, I think you must be sleeping only 4 to 5 hours, morning to evening. How did it happen? What is that in your IFS training, or how is that built up with you, Excellency? So active, so energetic.
I don't think, again, I'm very unique. I think all my colleagues all over the world are doing something very similar. We have, of course, a very strong training, like all the civil services in India, about 1.5 years where we go through. And, contrary to the perception is that in the diplomatic life, it's all glamour, it's all, luxurious, sort of going for, this event and that event. Yes, there is, definitely there is. And that plays a very important role in your networking, in able to connect with people, in exchanging ideas and so on and so forth. But a lot of it is very, very hard work. And when you join the service, you are told you are actually on work 24/7.
Absolutely.
There's no such thing as ye to chutti hai, can switch off. No way, because you're responsible for your people when you're outside of India. That's your primary duty. You're a public servant. You're paid by the taxpayer to do your work. You have to be conscious of that every minute, that you have to earn your salary. And that is something I've always learned, to put my heart and soul in whatever I was doing. Now, of course, I'm ambassador, etc., etc. But even as a very junior officer, when you have to do a whole lot of other things, nothing has been too small for me and meaningless. Yes, of course, it can be difficult. It can be a very difficult place to be in sometimes. You can be very lonely because you're so far away from your own country. Now, of course, it's very easy because you have all this connectivity, 24 hours. You can be on your, various social media, options are there to see your family and to chat with them. But for a long, long time, we just managed with, sending letters. And even making an international call, you could not afford to make, so we would do maybe once a week or something like that. That is what it was. But you're taught that this is a choice that you have made, and you have to do that well. So I think it was not very difficult. And of course, COVID, this is something unprecedented. This is a crisis of humongous proportions. Nobody has ever faced anything like this. 1918, the memory is not there, for us, how they dealt with at that stage. Fortunately for us, the fatality rate is still low compared to, some other, although the infectious, it's very, very highly infectious. So our main, objective here was to ensure that all our Indian nationals who are here in Thailand are safe, and we wanted to send back as many of them back to India as possible. So the minute the lockdown was announced, we had a short notice period by when we actually ensured my team went and called up everybody, got as many people out as possible. And for those who remained, who were stranded, we have been having the Vande Bharat flights, 16 flights we have done so far. And we have ensured that people who were, at a very difficult point during the lockdown here in Thailand, fortunately didn't have a very severe lockdown, but in the beginning, there were some restrictions, but so we made sure that the community came together, helped out. We coordinated many of those, the support and the help. And then when the flight started initially, we sent our officers all over Thailand to Phuket and to Pattaya to got them over and coordinated that. This, like I mentioned to you, you're very kind, Mr. Bakshi, but this is what all our officers, all our ambassadors all over the world are doing. And, this is our job. And we have our Honorable Prime Minister, is working day and night. All our senior ministers are doing that. So, I mean, this is just the entire paraphernalia of Government of India is working very hard for our people and to ensure that our bilateral relations between India and Thailand are really doing wonderfully well. With the support of my team here, we've been, by God's grace, we've been able to do a decent job, I would say. Yes.
Very great. In fact, all the ambassadors, all the teams of Indian embassies around the world, they really require a round of applause. They are also the warriors of supporting and helping the community at large. Our salutes to all the officers, all the excellencies, ambassadors, and the team. And when I see your life, Your Excellency, you're married to His Excellency R. Swaminathan. Now, both of you, different locations, different positions in different countries. How difficult, you did share a little bit, how difficult it is for you. And when he is ambassador at one place, you are in another country. And there are many couple ambassadors who have had this issue. I keep asking him, how do you manage this? And now he is with you after retirement, is fine. But then how do you manage this type of life?
Like I mentioned to you, it's a choice that you make. So I think you have to take, everything which goes along with that. I would again say that, I was very fortunate to have met and married my husband. He's a brilliant diplomat and also a very, very supportive husband to me. And, he has, been very understanding and very flexible. I really owe a lot to him. And particularly after, of course, in the last few years after his retirement, he's been very kind to stay with me, which has really helped to, because the spouse of an ambassador in the Indian Foreign Service plays a very important role. So, in fact, even in Parliament, I think one of our prime ministers had mentioned that actually you get 2 ambassadors for the salary of 1. So, and my husband has really taken that to heart, and he plays a very, very supportive role as far as I'm concerned. And yes, there were periods when we had to stay apart from each other, but I think that is true of civil servants in India as well. These days, as you said, communications being what it is much, much better. So we are able to overcome that. I think it's again, it's a sort of a, viewpoint. So if you are positive and if you have full trust, in your spouse and a full confidence, and you're able to discuss everything openly in a very, it's a partnership ultimately. I think you are able to take up all these things, and that is what has happened. So.
Fantastic. Your Excellency, looking at your aura, looking at your energy, looking at your actions, What's your motivational fit to be driving your life? I am actually looking at, because with your communication, what you are going to have, your motivational fit which you have, how do you tell these women who are going to be listening to you now or later, and how do they perfect their imperfections in life? Because there are various imperfections which can come on the way, leading our life as a woman, as a business leader, as a corporate leader, or as a diplomatic leader, or an education leader, whatever leadership role we have. What kind of imperfections they have, and they can perfect that. With your example of your excellency, your motivational fit, who inspires you?
Well, I don't know whether, I'll be very happy, if I'm a role model for some people. But the thing is that, there are very simple things in life. Firstly, I think you have to have a very strong sense of duty. That is, I think, whatever you do, it doesn't matter whether you do a very high, sort of intellectual job, or you do a very simple, job, which might seem very mundane. You have to do it with passion, and you have to do it with love. When you, for example, if you fold clothes, you can't just fold it any which way and put it away. You have to do it in a particular neat way, and so that it lies properly when you put it away, etc. If you scrub the floor of your bathroom, you have to ensure that every corner is you remove the dirt from every corner. You have to understand what you're doing. I have a lot of interest in whatever I do. When I sit and write out a note, I do it with full attention to what I'm doing. When I have to meet people, I try to give them my 100%. When I am, going to a function, I know that this is something that's very important to what we are doing. And so everything has to be, firstly, you have to be positive. You have to be open. Government work, there are lots of rules and regulations. You have to learn to interpret them properly. You cannot violate the rules, but the rules have been set together to facilitate actually public service in a proper way. So honesty, personal probity, working hard so that your team, you cannot just give orders to other people if you are taking it easy. You have to lead from the front. I used to be ambassador to Somalia. Many ambassadors who were in Nairobi, who were accredited to Somalia, had not even gone to present credentials. But I went there. It was not an easy place. There were bomb blasts. Sometimes you had to even go in armored vehicles, your movement. But it was fantastic. It was a great opportunity. And I looked at it as something that my government has given me this opportunity to do this for my country. And this is what I tell my colleagues also. Don't be, look at everything with some pride and joy. The other thing is that work-life balance, you have to have some time you have to give to your family. Just because you are whatever in your work, that has no meaning. If you don't take care of your family, who's going to do that for you? I always feel that if every parent was good with their child, doesn't matter whether you're rich or middle class or poor, to teach them some values, the world will be a much better place. So I think that is very important. Again, you have to spend time with everybody. You have to adjust all life is actually adjustment. You have to learn the art of compromising to get the best out of people. Not everybody is perfect. You are also not perfect. Not everybody is around is not perfect. But we have to ensure that you bring out the best in everybody and think of everyone as bringing something good to your thing. So I also consult all my colleagues. The decision, of course, the buck stops with me here, and I will take those decisions. But I ensure that I'm open to everybody's, inputs, as they say, because that helps me. Because everybody has some knowledge, experience, and ideas which they can share. And I must say, it has been a very, very positive experience throughout.
Beautiful, ma'am. In short, you gave a very great leadership lesson. I am a leadership coach. Indarula is he is in the Zoom. He is part of me, and we do leadership trainings around the world. And in short, 3 to 4 minutes, you gave a beautiful, simple leadership lessons of life. And ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this conversation from Her Excellency, Madam Suchitra Durai, who is the Indian ambassador in Thailand, a very simple way of looking at positive, associating with people, listening to people, making them consultative processes, and taking care of your family life as well, and taking decisions along with people. What a great leadership lesson you gave, Your Excellency, today. Ma'am, I am moving to the end now because I wanted to know about your journey. I'm going to this specific topic, 1 or 2 questions on this women empowerment, and then I am going to open it for a couple of questions. Ma'am, now, after your journey of excellence, which is certainly fascinating and fantastic, I am talking about women empowerment. I am talking about this women power. Whether we are in the US, whether you are in Canada, we still have issues in terms of women. We may say that we are a progressive country. We may say that we are in the Western world. But then when I interact with people there, and they all say we still have those issues. And similarly, when you look at other countries where there are issues in any case, and look at Afghanistan, look at Lebanon, look at Syria, look at Ethiopia, look at Nigeria, Bangladesh, many countries, even in fact, our own proud country, we have issues still. So this women empowerment, how and what does this women empowerment mean to you, Your Excellency? Can you share your thought on this? What is that women empowerment for you? So that my people who are listening to you would know about your thinking about women empowerment.
Fortunately in India, we have this wonderful constitution which has enshrined the right of equality.
Absolutely.
So, there is in law, the basic law of the country, there's absolutely no discrimination. But of course, in reality, many people have many challenges. In urban areas, I think women are in a fairly comfortable position. In rural area also in some parts, because particularly women contribute a lot to rural households, they have been able to achieve a certain level. In terms of political rights, again, I think in local government, there is, women's reservation has come in, which means you're represented at the political level. We have many examples of great women leaders in India. But what is empowerment? Empowerment at the social level means you're able to decide for yourself as to what you want to be. Whether you can articulate your own thoughts, whether you have full control over your life, whether you can make independent decisions, whether you have economic independence, and Also full control over your body. For example, what you wish to wear, your reproductive rights, the entire ability to be able to voice your opinions. Now, this is women's empowerment. So it's a mixture of social, political, and economic rights, which gives you the power to decide for yourself what you want to be. I might decide that I don't want to go out to work, that I wish to take care of my children at home, bring them up properly, take care of my old parents, and maybe learn a craft and do that and earn my living sitting at home. But that right should be there. If other people force you to do certain things, then that woman is unfortunately not empowered. Now, empowerment doesn't come only because of a social class. Of course, if you have economic stability, certainly it helps a lot. But that doesn't mean that actually you're empowered just because you have a lot of money. It is a mix of very many things. Doesn't mean that just because of you have acquired a few degrees that you are actually empowered. A lot of people may acquire a whole lot of degrees and not be able to do anything at all independently because that atmosphere is simply not available to them, or they themselves have not thought of doing that. So these are all various things. I think a woman, of course, has to understand firstly, as a girl child growing up, that these are all opportunities available. So there has to be, role models presented as you grow up, the values that you have as a society, as a culture. Then the boys also have to be equally educated to treat girls equally, not as subordinate, not as, different. I think both men and women, to me particularly, I find it actually quite absurd to even think that there is a difference. There is a biological difference, certainly. But is there a mental difference? I don't think so. Everybody is, some people, of course, there can be a difference of opportunities. That is true. But otherwise, I think there is absolutely no difference. I don't think women are better than men, nor do I think that men are better than women. I think we are equal, we are partners. Society needs both men and women. And I would say we should also not go overboard by, giving women all the importance and deriding the men. That is not correct. A society needs a very positive and a mutually respectful approach towards each other. And then, of course, society has to provide the framework for people to come into their own, to be. This is the ideal world. The real world, of course, there are many, many challenges, and I fully agree with you on that.
Fascinating the way you could share with us your concept of women empowerment. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Excellency. You're absolutely right. Women have to be given that much of respect and gender equality. And, I have been titled as an honorable woman in the world now by doing this, taking this mission of, 1 million women together on this platform by 2024. All these women around the world are literally working hard to make an impact. So we have in this, in this platform now, because during COVID, we can't do anything. AC, we may do face-to-face, but during COVID, a lot of workshops, a lot of webinars are going around the world, in Africa, in Middle East, in Asia Pacific, in Australia, and we keep on connecting them, and I keep on supporting them around the world. So while we will be certainly looking forward to your support, especially in Thailand, NG is planning an event. Maybe we might do end of October or around mid of November. We are not still sure with the social distancing. We would require your support to this women power, a global movement, whenever we need you to come and be part of us, so that, you know, the women, and this is not for only Indian women, this is for all women who are in Thailand. There are Thai women who have become part of us. There are some German, some French women who have become part of us in this women power, even in Thailand also. So we would require your commitment to be part of this women power. Have I your commitment, ma'am, Your Excellency?
Well, you know my thoughts very well on this, Mr. Bakshi. I have voiced it but of course, you know, as a government servant, I have certain restrictions on what I can join and what I cannot join. But definitely, I think the embassy and myself, we are, you know, at your disposal for whatever you want us to do, and that we can help in that. And one particular thing I forgot to mention, you know, when we were talking about, you know, positive energy, one very important thing, particularly during these COVID times, is that what you said, exercise, exercise, exercise. Be very careful, follow all the, you know, rules and regulations.
Yeah.
Have very nutritious, balanced food.
Wow.
And think positive and hope for the best. That's very important. Second point, I forgot to give credit to one very fine institution where I studied, where I did my school education, the Besant Philosophical School, a wonderful school where nobody was given importance depending upon the rank that they got. All children were equal. If you came first, that's fine. If you were last, that didn't matter. I loved going to school. There was not a single day that I wanted to stay at home, or, you know, if, for example, I got sick, the teacher would come home and say, why didn't she come? I mean, that was the kind of affectionate relationship that I had, you know, with other children. This was really a school which was fantastic. It was a government aided institution, a very simple school. We stayed in little cottages, sat on the floor, you know. So everything that I am, I think I owe to really that school for making me what I am, for me to be grounded forever. So that is something I wanted to give credit for.
Beautiful. We must credit those. Fantastic, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, I am looking at people, you know, in Narula is from the Namdari community, Vikasji is from Gas Authority of India, Dr. Rani is our Indian Women Club, you know, President Pavan Chetal is from CII, Niti, Neelu Day, I see her after a long time. Rajendra Kamishraji is already there. Renu is our Indian Association Women Power Lady. Rumi is coming from, you know, you know, she is from Rayong, and Satit, she is there already. So I am opening little questions. Shraddha Savarkar is again from Rayong. Simi Sood is there. Nice to see you, Simi. Sonal is our India chapter head. Tina is our chapter head in Jammu. So there are people who have joined from other parts also. And let's look at them. They have some questions. I will take a couple of questions. Anybody please unmute yourself and raise questions. So I have a question from Neelu Day. Success makes us feel powerful. Failures, when handled with grace, dignity, and courage, empower us. Ma'am, how do you handle failures? The one quality you see in Your Excellency. Every word you express today is coming from such a humble wisdom within you. That is empowering and inspiring, ma'am. Regards, Neelu. Neeluji, nice to see you here. I long to see you. Yes, Neelu, you can unmute yourself and Your Excellency will respond. Yeah, Neelu. Yeah, I think Neelu is not. So anybody else, you can unmute yourself. Quickly, we don't have time. We have only 5-7 minutes. I can't take questions from Facebook then, Varsha. Anybody here who has any questions, please unmute yourself. Ask the question. Aran Singh, Pawan Chetal, Rajendra Kemeshwar ji, Satit Kumar ji, Simi Sood ji. Anybody, any question? Yeah, Rumi Ghosh, please. Rumi, ask the question. Rumi?
Hello.
Unmute yourself. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. What is the most challenging and the most rewarding aspect of your job? Or I'd like to ask that question. The biggest challenge that you have ever faced?
Your Excellency, biggest challenge you ever faced. Rumi Ghosh from Rayong.
Thank you for raising this question. I was posted to Cairo when the Arab Spring took place, and I was heading our cultural center there, and it was just 5 minutes away from Tahrir Square. So when the protest started, it was an incredible period. A lot of excitement, a lot of anxiety, and many countries, their foreign diplomats left actually the country immediately. But we in the Indian Embassy, we stayed on, and I've seen, in fact, buildings burning right across the River Nile, which is where we had our residence. We had reports of crowds coming in at any moment. We had young people coming into our residence wanting to make calls to India to reassure their people. We had our entire security element which disappeared suddenly overnight. And it was a very tough period, but through it all, one stayed there. We were very strong. We supported everybody who was in need of going back, the cultural center which I ran was the only foreign cultural center which never closed, not even for one day. We just shifted our base to the embassy for about 2 weeks, and we functioned from there. And then we went back to our original, place, venue. There was a period, I remember, we were just doing our classes and everything, and suddenly we saw tanks were rolling in. So quickly we put down the shutters, and we ensured that all the students were safe, and then we ensured that they went back. So we really did excellent work throughout that period. We had many visitors from India. We had exhibitions. We had book launches. We had 125th, years anniversary celebration of Rabindranath Tagore, which I'm very proud of. The various activities that we did, and we took that entire relationship to a different level in terms of cultural interaction. So I would say that was a challenging period. Then again, I mentioned Somalia to you. It was not an easy place to deal with. After 22 years, during my time, for the first time, we got in-kind aid actually supplied. So I went all the way to Mogadishu port, where going itself is a very challenging activity, and there we had our consignment of $1 million worth of essential medicines, and it was a very, very fulfilling kind of job that I had. Again, Kenya, very special. After 35 years, Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Modi came there. We had a fantastic public diaspora event. Here we had Sawadhi PM Modi after for the first time, I think, a public event here. There we had almost 25,000 people turned up in a stadium in Nairobi. Flawless, kind of program. We did a lot of kind and grant in aid activity there. So all these different places, different things, I think have been very fulfilling. We turned around a factory in Kenya with Indian assistance, and it became really a success story. And even now I get reports from my friends in Kenya about how well they are doing. We gave a Bhabatron for cancer treatment to patients for the #1 public hospital there. It was not easy getting that. We ensured it was there, ensured that it took off, and functioned so that it functioned in a flawless manner. So these are all, maybe they're small achievements, but they were very, very fulfilling actually, and very helpful in bringing two countries together.
Beautiful, ma'am. That is what the role of such a personality, such a great Indian ambassador is, in fact, Indianizing the world of India around the world. Anybody else has a question? I have some questions.
Yes, Bakshiji, I managed to unmute myself somehow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I may, if I may dare to ask. Ma'am, first of all, thank you so much. You've genuinely, I could just go on listening to you, but there's just one thing I'm so curious. As someone who probably has chosen a very simple life, yet it matters a lot to me to hear that from you. What is that one quality that you see in you that has helped you empower yourself through the failures that you may have experienced?
Okay. I think persistence. I never give up.
Wow.
I keep trying. So perhaps that is, and then, and if it's, some things that you can't make it, it's okay. I think you realize that life has to go on, that it's it's a wonderful world out there, and you have to take the good and the bad. So that is, I think, our ancient Indian philosophy really helps you to deal with a whole lot of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would always take this with me from today's session, that whatever we choose to do, it has to be done with so much of love and passion that even the simplest of act that we do, it just comes out as an inspiration to the other, and they feel like, wow, झाड़ू भी लगाया तो इतना अदा से लगाया कि वो भी बहुत लोगों को पसंद आया. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Bakshi ji, for this opportunity. Thank you.
And Niluji, all the best. And in fact, it's a power. I mean, that example was very great because it's a power of positivity, power of perseverance, power of persistence, she said, which leads to power of performance and power of passion and power of progress and power of profitability and power of pride. So you can create this power in you when you are clearly connected on persistence and perseverance. And a simple way, agar jadu bhi lagaoge, agar bathroom bhi saaf karoge, and you go to the corners and do it. It's a very simple way of looking at it. I see Madhu, Modi ji also there. I see Anita Sinha, Women Power Head of Hyderabad. Anybody else? Dr. Rani? Anybody else question? Otherwise, I go quick. And I need Karan Singh, Tina Bhatt. Anybody else who want to have any question? Sonal, chapter head of country India, 1.3 billion. Sonal Verma. Any question? Quick one. Yeah,
hi.
Sonal.
Yeah, hi. Day to day, we can overcome those.
Yes, I think firstly, you should have a very amicable relationship with the men who are in your workplace. Treat them as an equal. Those who are your, people who are at the same level as you are. Naturally, there's a hierarchy everywhere, and you have to be conscious of that hierarchy. Treat them as an equal, talk to them about, things which are of common interest to everybody. You should also, when you fight for equal pay, you have to also do equal work. I'm so happy that in the Indian Foreign Service, I never faced any discrimination. Absolutely not. If I had to go in the middle of the night, to receive somebody who was coming to the airport, I did it. It's okay. I don't want any special treatment. I never bothered. Those were the days when in Delhi you had to take a taxi in the middle of the night. You didn't have an official car, you would just call up. I didn't even have a phone. I would call from the rotary dial thing, a taxi will come, you sit there, you go. I used to drive a car. I knew how to take care of myself. And after your meetings are over, if you had to come back late, you had to come back late. You were sensible. Maybe I was also, it was different, perhaps time. Maybe it was a safer period, but never, you have to have that confidence in you. I've stayed in a building all by myself in a foreign country, 5 floors in that building, all by myself. I was mugged by somebody in a week of my going on my first foreign posting. But okay, I mean, you can't, then be traumatized and, break down. You have chosen this life, you have to do it. So these are things which happen. Once you made a choice, you have to go forward with it. And I have always been non-confrontational, but I've always stood for my rights. If I find that somebody is denying me something, I would just go directly and say, I'm sorry, I don't like what you're doing. I hope you don't mind, but this is what I think. So this has been my approach. It's worked for me. I'm not saying it worked for everybody. And there is a redressal system. We have laws in place in India. You can stand up for your rights. Of course, you also have to have very strong family support. There is no denying that. You have to have strong societal support. But once you say that I'm ready to do everything, you treat me as an equal. In most places, I'm not saying everywhere, most places you will find that you'll actually get treated the way that you deserve to be treated.
Fascinating, ma'am. And everywhere people are asking, people are saying, Rashmi, it is one of the very great webinars I have attended. It is giving power to women. And Vinay ji is saying, Milani from Spain is saying, very interesting conversation. And Jugani ji is saying Namaste ji, and we have Papani Seth saying Namaste ji. And then we have a question, Vikas Kabra. Karan is saying Namaste, I am here. Simi Sood there. Very truly said, ma'am. Simi Sood is saying. And Vinod Pandita is saying, energy all over. Neenu Tuteja, another women power. Great thoughts, ma'am. And then there's a question which is coming from Kaushal. Kaushal is saying, Your Excellency, if one thing as a woman you would like to do for women empowerment, then what will be that? Kaushal is asking this question on Facebook. One thing. Now we need to close it next few minutes. Yes, I know that.
You should never give up. That is the most important thing. Never give up. Never give up on your femininity also. You just because you are wanting to do certain things, you don't stop being a woman, and you have to take everything very positively, and I think if you're like that, you will not be seen as a threat, and you will find that the doors open for you, because ultimately everybody sees that you're sincere and you're positive. and things work out.
Very great. I think Renu wants to ask a question. That's the last question I will take. Renu, go ahead. Renuji, go ahead. You wanted to ask a question.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Renu, I unmute. Yeah,
Can you hear
Renu,
me?
go ahead.
Hello, Bakshi ji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. It's
Yes, yes,
really
we can hear.
very inspiring and it's wonderful. I mean, it's so much of positivity. And as a lady, to hear you, ma'am, it's excellent. A question from my side. A lot of ladies now, in terms of new generation people who are working now, and like how you said, family support is important, and how as a husband, sir has also been very supportive. There are, of course, a lot of challenges as a lady, and sometimes the new generation is failing to understand that they need to balance both work and the corporate side. So what is your one suggestion that you may have for the new generation as a lady? For example, for me, always I feel when I come home, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter-in-law, I'm a mom. So how is it one suggestion you want to give to our new generation people so that it may help them as well to balance both their corporate lives and home?
Yes, try if you can to separate the two. It's not easy, especially after the work from home, format that we've all adopted. So the work comes home, and you have to run your household, and family might just walk into when you're doing something, and you might find yourself impatient or upset or whatever. Don't let that upset you. I think you have to do your work well. Of course, you have to do that with focus, etc. But we have to remember that we are all part of society, and if you don't treat your own family well, if you don't give them the time that they deserve, then what is it that you're working for? So that is something that one has to realize. And we're all searching for happiness. For some, happiness means public recognition. For others, just getting the support and recognition from the family probably means a lot more. And for others it might be material wealth. For others it might just be giving of yourself to other people and having the ability to do so. For others it might just be a learning. All life is learning. It never stops. This program has also been a learning for me, because frankly I didn't ever focus on this subject so much. One is aware of it, of course, and in action, in life, you live this. But when you are given an opportunity to look at it, then you actually start thinking of many things, and you wonder, whether all the things that you took for granted, whether it is correct or it is not correct. So these are the things that you have to look at, and not feel very disheartened, because what might seem as terrible, a great tragedy, when you look at the cosmos and what you are in that universe, you realize that it's a folly. We're all here for a very short period. Even with all the longevity, it's really a blink of an eye in terms of cosmic time. So whatever time you're there, you might as well be nice to people and try to be as helpful as you can. Sometimes we all forget this because we think we are immortal, and we think that we are so great. But we have to remember that that's what you are. If you can be of can bring some joy to somebody's life, why not?
Thank you very
Amazing,
much.
man.
Thank you,
Your
ma'am.
Excellency. Yeah, Renu, what a simple way of giving those wonderful tips for life. And in fact, Sarabjit Singh, our president, Indian Association, is saying, learn from Your Excellency today. Very, very interesting. And Neelu is saying again, the most powerful sentence heard this year, that what we are doing for happiness can't become reason for unhappiness. Yes, that is what it is. I am not taking any other question. I am so grateful. I don't know, Your Excellency, you gave me a lot of time. And I repeat, and my audience will agree on what ma'am is, Your Excellency Suchitra Durai. Suchitra is simply unique, compassionate, helpful, intelligent, talented, richness, aura. And that's a fact. I think she spoke like that. And with that, I think I need to close it. And before closing, I would say that since we could not share the PPT, I will get it delivered at the Embassy, Vision, Mission, Values of Women Power, a global movement of 1 million women together by 2024. Please have a look at Vision, Mission, Values and our roadmap till December 21. And I will get the hard copy delivered to the Embassy. And at the end, before I close, I would like our Achan in Narula, you unmute yourself, Achan, in and say vote of thanks to Your Excellency, Ambassador.
Yes.
India and
Yes,
Thailand.
I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
Yes, Achan, in.
Yes,
So,
let me begin. Namaskar and Sawadee to everyone. Your Excellency Suchitra Durai, let me begin thanking Your Excellency for sharing your experiences from childhood till now with us all. The key takeaways from your talk today, if I may go ahead with it, your parents are your role models. Through them, you have learned many values that guide your thought process and also your behavior. The following are the things that perhaps we must keep in mind in order to be happy and successful, and especially for the women of the world. Be truthful, be grateful, be honest, respect all religion, be compassionate, be kind, be caring, learn the art of compromising, be open-minded, and very important, please be simple. Connect interculturally and also intra-culturally. Get people involved. Get your people to also give ideas. And because of that, you must be a great listener. Nothing is too small. Everything is possible. And in the end, never give up. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Madam Ambassador once again, and let us all remember men and women are equal partners to bring about peace and equality to this world. In the end, be safe, stay healthy. Thank you once again, Your Excellency, and God bless.
very great, Achan, in, and thank you so much, Khapur Mahakrakhab. I see Ravi Saigal, President of ITCC, already on Facebook saying hello. I see Jogani ji from President of India Thai Diamond Colored Stone Association. Madam, I don't have any words to express, but to say from the core of my heart, thank you very much for your time. Your deliberation has taught me another few lessons today, which I am going to take it forward. You know, every Saturday when I do this, there is a lot of learning. It started from Dr. Kiran Bedi to Shahja Alvi to Anindya Sinha to many people. And next week is CEO of, Noida. And then I have Deepa Kumar and I have Kangana. I have many people coming in. We have 100 women power ladies till December 21 is my personal target, which I have given to my 20 chapters. I have some from Western world also going to be there. I don't know what to say, but I can only say that Your Excellency, your thoughts have been passionately simple, beautiful, wonderful, meaningful, and an impact on some of the personalities who are going to be watching it even beyond this. From the core of my heart and on behalf of Women Power, a global movement, I certainly salute you. And it is one world, one love, one woman, and we have to be together to have gender equality, respect for women, and create a world which is full of peace, prosperity, and progress. Thank you very much. Hold my hands. Namaste, Your Excellency. I will see you soon, and this will be delivered at your embassy. Thank you very much. Thanks
Thank you so
everybody
much.
who joined us on Facebook, on Global Talent Television, as well as on Zoom. Thank you very much and wish you all the best. We are all together to create a great world with one love, one world, and one thinking, and one human being COVID has taught us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Your Excellency, good night. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Varsha, for coordinating. Very great. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Varsha. You have been very, very supportive and very great. Thanks, Achanin. Achanin Narula, thank you so much for your vote of thanks. Thanks, Sonal. Thanks, Commissioner Saab. Thanks, Shraddha. Thanks, Simi Suji. Thanks, Renu. Thanks, Madhuji. Madhu Modiji. Everybody, thank you so much for being there. And on the Facebook, I have many people there. Thanks a ton. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bakshi. Bye-bye.